Okay, so picture this. For 7 straight years, one question has been fully off limits in mainstream British media. And I am not talking about whispered behind closed doors or quietly talked about between editors over coffee. I am talking fully, by design, on purpose, off the table. A question so loaded that seasoned writers, lawyers, and even royal reporters refuse to go anywhere near it in print. 7 years. Then, in March 2026, a single column in one of Britain's oldest outlets changed all of that. Because the moment that question finally got printed, reviewed by editors, cleared by lawyers, put out for the world to read, it did not just crack the silence. It blew the whole thing wide open, and what came pouring out has shaken the Sussex machine in a way that no royal book, no Piers Morgan segment, and no palace briefing ever has. You need to hear what just happened, because this is not another royal drama cycle. This is something fully different. Hook option B, the conversational collapse hook. Meghan Markle's team has denied things before. They pushed back on the bullying claims. They fought parts of the Oprah fallout. They called Tom Bower's first book a smear job and sent stand-ins to every friendly outlet that would listen. And honestly, that playbook worked for a long time. For years, the Sussex PR team was seen as one of the most fierce and sharp in the famous people world. So why, after 7 straight years of one very clear set of questions, getting louder and louder across 3 landmasses, have they never once flat out addressed what people are really asking? That silence used to look like a game plan. Today, it is starting to look like something else. And by the time this is over, you are going to see exactly why Meghan Markle's team went fully silent on the one topic they have every reason in the world to address. If you had asked anyone in Hollywood about Meghan Markle back in 2014, they would have told you she was a working actress on a cable legal drama filmed in Toronto. Pretty, driven, building a lifestyle brand on the side. Nobody special in the big picture. They had no idea what was coming. Tom Bower is not a tabloid writer. He does not do hit pieces for clicks. The man spent decades digging into some of the biggest names in British public life. Robert Maxwell, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, Richard Branson. Every single time, his work held up to legal review, source checks, and the test of time. So when he put out Revenge in 2022, going after Meghan Markle, the book was sharp. It laid out social climbing, image control, and what many sources called a step-by-step teardown of every bond that stood between Meghan and the life she wanted. The Sussex camp stayed quiet. Allies pushed back through friendly media, but Meghan and Harry themselves said nothing. Everyone read that silence as the high road. But that was just what they wanted you to see. Because here is the detail that almost nobody caught at the time. Revenge sat on bestseller lists for weeks and sparked thousands of headlines. And through all of it, one topic was never touched. Not in the printed excerpts, the talks Bower gave after Never Touched It, not in the pushback from Sussex allies. One very clear slice of Meghan's pre-Harry social life, the parties, the links, the circles she moved through during her Suits years in Toronto, and her trips to New York and Los Angeles, sat fully untouched in every mainstream outlet. Royal reporter after royal reporter circled the edges of it, then backed off. It was not a lack of knowing. Nobody in big media was willing to cross that line. And then betrayal showed up. 12 days before it even hit shelves, the Sussex camp put out the most fierce, planned statement they had ever released. They called it a wild theory, cheap drama, and made-up stories. PR expert Renee Smith went on record saying the response made them look deeply shaken. Now, you probably think that was about the brainwashing angle, or Camilla's warnings, or the Invictus footage, right? But that is not what got people talking. To get why any of this matters, you need to know how Meghan Markle's world really worked before Prince Harry ever showed up. Because the version she gave the public, the self-made actress, the do-gooder, the woman who caught a prince's eye just by being herself, that version has some very neatly built gaps in it. And those gaps all lead back to one place, Soho House. Now, do you know what Soho House really is? For those who do not know, Soho House is not just a members club. It is a tightly run social network built around clout, access, and the kind of meetups that do not happen by chance. During her Suits years in Toronto, Meghan became a regular there, and the man at the center of her entry into that world was Marcus Anderson. Head of global membership from Canada, started as a waiter and worked his way into the inner circle of founder Nick Jones. Anderson showed up at Meghan's royal wedding in 2018. He came back for her New York baby shower in 2019. That is not hearsay. It is on record, on camera, and hard to wave away. And here is what almost nobody caught. Marcus Anderson was not even the first person to connect Meghan and Harry. Harry's own memoir, Spare, confirms that Violet von Westenholz linked them through Instagram in July 2016. Anderson came in after that, not as the spark, but as the system. He ran the setup, the early meetups, the managed setting. He was the machine behind the match. And the machine matters just as much as the match itself. This choice seemed small at the time. It was not. Now, here is where things get really messy. Because sitting behind Soho House, funding roughly 60% of the whole thing at the time, was Ron Burkle, a major American billionaire with deep ties to politics and a huge reach across media. Burkle's name shows up in the personal contact book of Jeffrey Epstein. It also turned up in flight logs linked to Epstein when U.S. court papers were unsealed in early 2024. And I want to be very clear here because this matters. There is no real reporting that links Burkle to Meghan in any personal or wrong way. That claim does not exist on the record. But here is the thread that people keep pulling on, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The man whose money helped build the social world that brought Meghan Markle into Harry's orbit had clear ties to Epstein's circle. That is not a wild theory, just an overlap sitting in plain sight across court-released federal papers. And it was Nick Jones himself, Soho House founder, Burkle's partner in building that world, who came to Meghan and Harry's royal wedding as a guest of honor. The network behind the match was at the wedding, and nobody thought that was worth asking about, and if that were the only thread, maybe you could let it go. But then, there is Tom Bowers reporting in Revenge that during her Hollywood years, Meghan was often at parties hosted by Brett Ratner. Not now and then, not once or twice, but many times a week, for years. And then comes the quote that should have made far more headlines than it did. Nanaki Pretty, Meghan's childhood friend, told Bauer flat out that she was, quote, a scheming social climber who had her sights set on landing a prince ever since she was in high school. That is not unnamed sourcing, not a fringe forum post. She is a named source who knew Meghan long before cameras, long before suits, long before any of this, going on the record with a deep dive writer whose work has held up against every legal test thrown at it. And yet that quote barely showed up in big media coverage. Because at the time, the larger picture of what it all pointed to had not come into focus yet. If you are still with me right now, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to go somewhere that other channels will not touch. All right, so here is where things get truly wild. Jump to February 2026, and the whole talk blows wide open. Just days after fresh headlines about Prince Andrew came back up across British media, a photo went viral on every major platform at the same time. 7 women on a yacht, warm sun, big smiles, and 2 red arrows slapped right on top of the image, one arrow pointing at Meghan, the other pointing at a woman wrongly tagged as Epstein's longtime girlfriend. The post came from Russian state media and spread through Facebook, Reddit, and X, racking up hundreds of thousands of reposts and millions of views within hours. Fact-checkers stepped in fast. They ran the image, traced the real source, and proved that the second woman had been wrongly named. She was Flavia Serioni, not Epstein's girlfriend at all. The wrong label was planted on purpose, and it fell apart within 48 hours. And that fix should have ended the story, right? But it did not. It made it sharper, because while tearing down the false tag, the people digging in proved something far bigger. The photo itself was fully real. No tampering, no digital edits, no faking. The real image had been posted on August 10th, 2016 by a woman named Karlawa Duca, with every person in the frame clearly tagged. Meghan was on that yacht. The date was real. And that date, just weeks before Meghan and Harry started dating, was now sitting in public view, fully checked, and hard to deny. And the people on that boat were not random. They included Misha Nonu, Heather Dorak, and Bonita Lit, all backed up through their own posts, their own tags, their own digital trails going back years. Misha Nonu later designed the shirt Meghan wore during her very first public outing with Prince Harry. That is the same tight social circle, the same network, turning up again and again at every key moment in the Meghan and Harry story. The fake claim fell apart, and that is how truth is supposed to work. A wrong name tag should get called out every single time. But what did not fall apart was the yacht itself, the timeline, the people, and the links. All of it still standing, still without answers. And when you strip away the false parts, what stays is harder to brush off, not easier. In December 2021, David Boies, head of Boies Schiller Flexner, one of the biggest law firms in the country, sat down with the Daily Beast, At the time, he was working for Virginia Giuffre in her civil case against Prince Andrew. And during that talk, he said something that made the news for one cycle before the media quietly moved on. He said that his legal team was thinking about putting Meghan Markle under oath, not as someone being blamed, not as a target, but as a witness. His reasons were clear, detailed, and fully on the record. She had been in the US, which meant his team had legal reach. On top of that, she had been a close tie to Prince Andrew at one point, putting her near talks and settings that mattered to the case. And Boyce said he believed she was someone who could be counted on to tell the truth. So why was her name on that list? His team had room for only 10 to 12 sworn sessions total. Every single slot had to count. On January 12, 2022, Judge Lewis Kaplan turned down Prince Andrew's motion to throw out the civil case. The case was moving forward. Sworn sessions were coming. Meghan's name was on that short list inside one of the most watched legal fights in modern British and American history. Then, 5 weeks later, on February 15, 2022, Prince Andrew settled. Around £12 million, paid quietly, case closed, no owning of fault, no public words, no sworn sessions. Just like that, the whole legal process that could have put named witnesses under oath was shut down overnight. That is not guesswork. The legal timeline sits in court records, covered by every major outlet at the time, and you have to sit with what that means. Boyce was not flying blind. He knew the Soho house world, knew about Markle's ties. Meghan was not a random name pulled from nowhere. She was placed on that list for a reason, and every slot on it mattered. And then the case settled before any of it could be tested in court. 4 years later, in March 2026, Julie Burchill did something in the Spectator that nobody in mainstream British media had done in 7 straight years. Burchill is not a careful writer. She lost her job at the Daily Telegraph in 2021 after a racist tweet and later paid damages to a reporter after making hateful remarks. By every standard, she is seen as toxic. And yet, The Spectator, one of the oldest running outlets in the English-speaking world, with editors, lawyers, and the full weight of the brand behind every word it prints, ran her column on March 17, 2026. The piece went after Meghan's coming luxury women's retreat in Sydney, where tickets were close to $3,000 Australian dollars. And buried inside all that mocking was a single line that made people stop, scroll back, and read it twice. She wrote, "No one will get to ask anything fun, like how many yachts she was a guest on before she met her prince. Was it double figures or triple? And somehow, it gets worse." Not a Reddit thread, not a YouTube comment section. This was printed in The Spectator, reviewed by editors, checked by lawyers, and cleared to run. That shifts the whole picture, because once something crosses that kind of bar, it can no longer be waved off as fringe talk. Someone made the call to let that line go out. And that call sent a message to every newsroom in Britain. Now look at how the Sussex camp handled all of this. Because this is the part that should be leading every talk about this story, and almost nobody is bringing it up. Their statement against Bauer's betrayal was fierce, planned, and sent through many outlets at the same time. They called it a wild theory. They went after Bauer's methods, his goals, his access, his standing. But here is what that statement never once brought up. Not yachts, not Soho House, not Ron Burkle, not David Boyce, not a single word about the pre-Harry social world that sits at the heart of every question people are really asking. Does that not strike you as odd? They know how to push back. They pushed back on the brainwashing label, they fought the bullying claims, but this one group of questions, 7 years of them, across many countries, from named sources and court-filed legal records, has been met with total, unbroken silence. And when someone goes after every single person asking the question while staying clear of the question itself, that silence stops looking like a game plan. Here is what happened the moment that fierce statement dropped. Jack Royston, lead royal reporter at Newsweek, right away flagged the Streisand effect. That well-known pattern where going after something hard draws far more eyes to it than just letting it go. And that is exactly what played out, textbook, in real time. Within days, Betrayal hit #1 on Amazon before a single copy had even shipped to a store. Millions of people who had never heard of Tom Bower, who had no idea what printed excerpts had run in the Times, who had never followed the royal drama cycle at all, suddenly wanted to know what was in that book. The Sussex machine, built around image control, had handed Bower something no ad budget could ever buy. How do you make a mistake that big? That is not a small mistake. A huge one, truly. And it tells you where their game plan is right now, because teams working from a place of strength do not mess up like that. Zoom out further, because the betrayal blowback is just one piece inside a much larger pattern that covers 8 years and 3 land masses. A deep dive writer with a decades-long track record puts Meghan at the center of 2 major books. A top American lawyer goes on the record naming her as a real option for sworn sessions in an Epstein-linked civil case. A writer at one of Britain's oldest outlets prints the yacht question like it is settled fact, cleared by editors and lawyers. A viral photo gets torn apart in one detail and backed up in every other, placing Meghan on a yacht in August 2016, ringed by the exact social circle that set up her meeting with Prince Harry weeks later. 6 different voices, across 8 years, across many countries, none of them linked to each other, none of them working together. And yet every single one follows the same pattern. Things heat up, the big outlets go quiet, and then the story comes back louder than before. The door that big British media kept firmly shut for 7 years has not just cracked open. It has been kicked off its hinges with full weight behind it. The Spectator column crossed a line, Bauer's betrayal crossed a line, the legal record sitting in unsealed U.S. court papers crossed a line. And once those lines are crossed in spaces with editors, lawyers, and real names behind them, they do not quietly uncross. What used to live in small corners and indie channels is now sitting in big media, in bestseller lists, in the public record of federal court cases. And through all of it, through every new piece, every new named source, every new outlet willing to ask the question out loud, the Sussex response stays exactly the same. Go after the person asking, run the pushback, stay fully silent on the real issue. So here is the question this whole story leaves you with. Nobody in any boardroom, any PR firm, or any palace has been able to answer it yet. When you have the money, the legal teams, the media ties, and the proven will to fight back hard on claims you say are false, what does it mean when the one set of questions you never once deny just keeps getting louder?